The Mummy was directed by Stephen Sommers and celebrates its 25th anniversary this year, and I just caught the last showing of it that was during its limited run in theaters. I don't know if it's running in places for an extended time and other stuff, but at least in my local neighborhood, that was it. So I'm glad I got a chance to go catch it right before it was done. But it's definitely not the first time I've seen the movie. I've seen it a bunch of times, especially growing up and, watching it on TV over and over. It was one of those staple movies that I think everyone I knew had seen to a point and everybody really, really loved. Even the sequel, The Mummy Returns, got a lot of love, and both those movies are regarded pretty highly with anyone who is in this present generation, or at least in the last about 25-30 years, who's grown up with The Mummy. Now, granted, the third one is we don't really talk much about the third one, but those first two have a very, important place in people's hearts, like I said. So naturally, this is something that I feel like it's the right time to talk about it and the legacy that it's had since. I don't quite recall the first time I watched The Mummy, but I do know it was one of those things that I watched because everyone was like, yo, you gotta watch The Mummy. It was this thing that it was built up as this big event. And I remember watching it, and even my parents were big fans of The Mummy. This was one of those things where everybody could get behind the fact that this was a really entertaining movie. And so watching it for the first time, everyone is just already in love with actors like Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz, and having to watch the movie and them become your heroes was also pretty great. I mean, that way I think Brendan Fraser around this point with this and George of the Jungle, I feel like there was this sort of nostalgia that was built towards him that has stayed on to this day. It's always great whenever I see him in anything as a result of that because, he's been there for as many years as I can remember. And so to see this movie again, just to be reminded of how awesome an actor he is always a great thing to do. It's also great to be reminded that one of the formative crushes of my time was in this movie because Rachel Weisz still remains one of those. And she's equally awesome in the movie. Really, you got two dynamite casting choices in this film, and both of them are so good over here, and they fit Rick and Evie so well. You couldn't really do anything else with these two. This is a perfect pairing as far as I'm concerned when it comes to an adventure movie. And so much of that adventure aspect of it, everything that you're seeing in terms of the action sequences, the more, horrifying sequences that are placed and sprinkled within, it all rests on the fact that there is this great dynamic built between them. But also John Hannah, who is really, really great as Evie's brother, Jonathan. Whatever he also has to do is really, really fun. Really, every character in this movie, as much time as you get with them, they're all having a really great time with it. And 25 years later, it's nice to be reminded of just, how fun movies like this can be. I don't know what exactly, reviews go when it comes to this film, but to me, it's just a perfect adventure film. Every time I've watched it, I haven't gone looking for issues because I'm sure I could if I wanted to. But I also don't feel like this is the kind of movie that warrants it. It's a film that has a very simple premise, it sticks to that, and it achieves exactly what it has to achieve, and it makes you want more by the end of it. That's kind of great. That's exactly what you needed sometimes. And all the stuff that goes on with Imhotep and his resurrection, eventually trying to revive his love, Anck-su-namun, that entire endeavor, releasing the plagues into Egypt. I mean, there is this really great visual sense to it that Stephen Sommers is able to capture. And there is that, again, epicness and grand scale to it that is so great in this movie. And so much of it feels so tangible and so real. Sometimes you look at movies like this and you kind of wonder, okay, can we make more like this again? Can we go back to this time? Because there is a certain sense of adventure to these movies that I feel sometimes you don't really get that, or you don't always get that with movies, especially nowadays. We try to recapture a certain tone. Between this and The Mummy Returns, I feel like there was just this perfect blend of exactly that kind of an adventure movie. Now, I don't really, like I said, we really don't talk about the third one because I feel like that was a huge mess and I'm not really sure what happened over there. But the first two movies, dynamite. You know, we got some great stuff over there. Watching it tonight, I didn't have too much of a crowd because most of people I knew, I think they went to go see it during the week. I was catching up with a bunch of other stuff at the time, but even the crowd that I was with, lots of laughs, lots of really great stuff over there. But I really have to go back to these characters because, again, the chemistry between Fraser and Weiss is great. They get along so well in this film, and Rick and Evie as characters, one of them an adventurer who's also just trying to find treasure, and then you've got Evie who is a librarian, as she proudly proclaims. Then you've got this adventure going on where both of them are heading into uncharted territory, and they have to deal with things they haven't dealt with before. And again, that connection that builds as the movie progresses is wonderfully done. And it's nice to see that it has maintained a place in pop culture over time in that sense. Like, just the amount of people who still talk about it. Even if you mention The Mummy on social media, just randomly, you'll have people coming to talk about it. It's a movie that has such a special place for so many. And even now, it's great to revisit it. And as I've watched it over the years, I've just appreciated it more and more. It's also extremely violent at times. Like, you forget, but it's pretty crazy when it comes to some of the stuff that happens. Like those scarab beetles, the ones that just, come out and crawl into your skin and, eat you from the inside. Still gives me the creeps. Like, every time you see that, you kind of go, Christ, like, that is the scariest thing. Imagine getting eaten slowly from the inside for thousands of years. Scariest thing you've ever thought of, right? And the movie has that. Even with the moment where the first victim that Imhotep has taking away the eyes and the tongue, it's pretty insane stuff. Like, I actually forgot how brutal this movie gets every now and then, because sometimes when you're watching it on stuff like cable or something like that, you might miss a couple of shots here and there to make it more family friendly. But despite that, a lot was on the TV. Regardless of that, I just really had a great time watching the movie again. So I guess this is a quick little retrospective in all senses of the word. I don't really have much more to add about The Mummy that hasn't already been said. Visually it's great. Great score. Jerry Goldsmith, once again, just, one of the great composers ever. Great direction. Great supporting characters as well, who some of them, return in The Mummy Returns. It was really great seeing them in that movie as well. And just a really great cast, and just making sure you know exactly what to do with this movie and its premise, and landing it in exactly the ways it's supposed to land. And I really love this movie. I have genuinely just been overly fond of it for years now, and that's going to remain based on tonight's experience. You know what I was thinking of, though? I was thinking of the fact that if I've seen it a bunch of times, what if someone was in the theater watching it for the very first time? I couldn't help but think about that, because there is something really cool about that aspect. What if someone has never seen it before? And if that was your first experience, then it's one that I hope stays in the very same way with you as it has with me, as it has with many other people. And that would be pretty cool. If you're someone like that who watched it, and if you're watching this video, let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. If you're somebody who's grown up with it in general, let me know what you thought about it even then. Guys, thank you very much for watching, and I've been enjoying these so much that I'm going to do a few more. Some other omissions exist on this channel, and I'm going to cover them. And there are omissions that you're not gonna believe are there. I'm gonna put those up when I get the chance, but yep, there's more coming in this series. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.